welcome to Sleeping with Sarah. I'm Sarah Albritton, a narcoleptic comedian, and this is the podcast where I interview people in my bed and we talk about sleep, comedy, and relationships. This week, I interviewed a writer, comedian, performer, all over great person and friend, Anastasia Washington. We had a really fun conversation. We covered a variety of topics from Insomnia, Comic-Cons, cancel culture, her experience as a child actor, and much, much more. It's a really fun interview, and I can't wait for you to listen to it. Anastasia has a one-woman show that she wrote and created and will be in called 50 Shades of Mix, which premieres November 13th, 2020. It's actually going to be doing a digital online premiere, so you could actually watch it live. She'll be filming it remotely from the theater, or you can log in within 48 hours afterwards. You can buy tickets for that at whitefiretheater.com. That's whitefiretheater.com. It's theater with an R-E, like the British spelling of it. Anastasia also hosts a number of podcasts that are really awesome. You Can't Do That Anymore, which looks at films and basically says, well, could that old film be made today? Could you still get away with certain things? She has a podcast called Hysterical, which is a history podcast. Serial Killers, about, obviously, murders and serial killers. And Haunts and Hops, about paranormal stuff and ghosts and all that sort of fun things. So she's got lots of amazing content for you to check out. If you still want to figure out where else to find her, you can follow her on Twitter at Anastasia W. That's just Anastasia with a W at the end. And on Instagram, Anastasia Wash. That's W-A-S-H. So please follow her and listen to her podcasts. Okay, so we've got a couple more weeks to the election, and I know people are feeling stressed out and anxious. I know I am too, but just know that we're all going to get through this. I know we're like in insane times right now. I'm just going to encourage people to please vote. Please vote early and in person if you can. If you can't, please drop off your ballot to a official ballot box, because apparently in California, some Republican Congress people tried to put out a fake ballot box that isn't legitimate. So please make sure you're sending it to a legitimate ballot box if you're dropping it off in person, and just please go vote. That's all I'm going to say. Please vote, wear a mask, vote, treat people kindly, think positively, and things will all get through this. Hopefully. We'll see. Anyways, if you want to follow me, you can always go to at Sarah Albritton on Twitter and Instagram, or check out my website, sleepysarah.com, Sarah with an H at the end, to find out more about me. Also, if you like the podcast, please rate and review wherever you listen to your podcast. Those ratings make a huge difference. Also, feel free to share with a friend if you're enjoying it. Okay, enough plugs and info and everything else. I'm so psyched for you to hear this podcast interview with Anastasia Washington. So, no more ado, let's get started with the show. Sleeping with Sarah. Hey, welcome to Sleeping with Sarah. I'm Sarah Albritton, and I'm here with my guest, Anastasia Washington.
Hey guys.
Hey Anastasia, how'd you sleep last night?
You know, I'm not that good of a sleeper. So for me, okay.
You're not a very good sleeper. How so?
I'm kind of an insomniac.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't sleep well.
I feel like a lot of creative people are insomniacs.
I think our minds just won't shut off. And mine is like, besides being creative, I also have an anxiety disorder. So like, I'm always like, but what if? And what if I had said something different? You know what I mean? So I just stay up very late.
That happens. Do you do writing at night at all?
I do.
Or? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I used to just like stay, like when I was younger, I would just be like, I can't sleep and like do nothing, but like maybe look at my phone. And now I've learned to do things if I can't sleep,
What are your go-tos?
I like to listen to audiobooks or read a book. I like to write like little poetry things or stand-up sketches, stuff like that. Just write. If I'm thinking about something over and over again, I'm like, is there something I can write about this? Instead of just, going through the anxiety loop. Let's see if we can make something out of it.
Exactly. At least your anxiety becomes something productive, right?
Yeah. When I got an anxiety disorder, I just didn't know it was going to be so creative.
I think that's the same with the narcolepsy. I didn't think I'd find so much creativity to come out of that either.
We're like, whoa, there's benefits.
I know. When were you diagnosed?
So probably teens.
Okay.
Teenagehood. Yeah, I mean, I was always kind of anxious, but I don't think it was until like the 90s and 2000s that people really were like, they were trying to figure out what was wrong with kids, but they didn't quite know what it was, and it was the age of the anxiety disorder.
Yeah. Yeah, mine was also in high school. So like it's like that weird time because you're also going through hormones and emotions and then they give you drugs and it's like yeah.
Yeah, at first I was just not like adjusting well to just a lot of life as a teenager. And people were like, well, what, and I was like, well, life's hard. Like maybe I'm just like upset for a valuable, like an actual reason. And
yeah. Yeah, it's a weird thing. I also feel bad about like, just little things like the way I talked to my mom as a teenager. Like I was going through so many things. Like I feel so guilty about how I treated my mom when I was growing up.
Yeah, definitely. Me and my mom are like, we're besties, but we're both the same sign.
What sign is that?
Scorpio.
Scorpio. Nice.
Yeah. And so we like love each other. And then if things go bad, it's like bad. And so like in my teenagehood, we had some moments together.
I know.
I said some things.
Yeah, I feel so bad for things when I was growing up. I was still like, I would just be so combative and it was not good. Like by the time I went to college, my mom like didn't shed a tear. I went to college 6 hours away. She's like, bye. We're so close now though. I love my mom. Like we're very close now, even though we live far apart.
Yeah, I think every mother and daughter have this like really like tormented time together. Like I think I was watching Pen 15 this season and it really highlights how it is to be a teen. Like and how it is to like take it out on the person that you love the most, your mom, or your dad, and just like the way that you function about it. It's this season especially very much is on point with that.
Oh my God. The sleepover episode, so good.
So good. And also I just loved actually the finale and the conversation of, mother and daughter about everything that, like how they're, they had a really good conversation about how they were treating each other,
I feel like that's more mature than what I was when I was, 12 years old.
Oh yeah, this is a conversation that we've had years later, but they had it.
No, I've just been like, Mom, I'm so sorry. You're very cool. Like I'm very sorry for how I treated you when I was a teenager. It's just hormones, man. It's awful.
Yeah, and it is a hard time as a woman to be a teenage girl. It's just hard.
I had a nightmare a couple weeks ago where I was like 12 again and it was just awful. And I was like, I woke up and I was like, thank God I'm an adult.
I don't want to go back. I mean, I'm like trying to think if I had to go back in time to an age, what age I would be. And I just think I'm okay. I don't think I need to go back.
Yeah. Oh, so back to, you said you have insomnia. Yeah. So what are the actual activities that you said you read a book? Are you reading anything right now?
Yes, I read about 2 or 3 books at once. Cause I'm nerdy like that. I'm reading a Nigerian, book about the uprising in the 60s. I'm reading Pym, which is an Edgar Allan Poe narrative told from a Black perspective.
Wow.
And I'm reading comic books.
That's awesome. Actually, one of the things I like about you is your like nerd sensibility. Like you've got She-Ra in the background, I can see, right?
I do. Yeah, that's my sister actually a few years ago did a She-Ra painting of me. So she's a little bit curvier. She's got a little bit more booty. And she's got curly hair and she's got green eyes. So she's her. I was like, you didn't have to like really show how big my thighs were. We could take some liberties. But yeah, that's me as She-Ra, because She-Ra has straight hair. But that's me.
No, I like that. What I liked about your house is filled with all these like hints at like all this different culture that you like Harry Potter, Marvel, like all these different things that I'm like, oh, like I get her, you know, because I'm kind of nerd level too, you know.
Yeah, it is definitely. I like also subtle things. Like I have this like tea set that is like really fancy tea set, and then you look at it and it has like these like little tiny paintings of severed heads and stuff, and so people are like, oh. I'm like, I know, right? Look at this painting. They're like, oh, it's a beautiful portrait. It's just a beautiful like landscape painting. Oh, wait, is that a gremlin in there? Yes, it is.
I think that's awesome. I really do. One of my favorite things, I went to C2E2 in Chicago. Haven't been to I was going to go Comic-Con this year, but 2020. But C2E2 in Chicago, and they had this one artist that had like subtle imagery. Like you would get it if you actually saw the things. Like it would be like clothing from like, you know, Back to the Future or something like that. Like it wouldn't make sense if you hadn't seen it, you know? Yeah. And I like that kind of subtle imagery as well, which is fun.
It's so fun. And when you go to these conventions, like all of these artists are there, and that's what I spend most of my money on at comic conventions besides booze. I go around and look at all these, you know, artists that are taking my favorites and doing some unique version of it, you know. I really dig that, you know.
I really like that too. So what do you think what's your like thing that you love to nerd out the most on? Is that too
so I think like I get super like, I feel like the nerdiest you are is when you get the most angry. Like if somebody like does something, you know? And I think the most angry or nerd raged I've ever gotten is over James Bond and or horror movies. Like I'm really into horror movies. But yeah, I almost flipped a table for James Bond once. So I feel like that's one of my like strong nerddoms. Like I have strong opinions.
Now, that's one I haven't been as into. I haven't seen all the James Bonds or anything, but that I've only seen like a handful, like maybe 4 or 5. Maybe.
I mean, as long as they're important ones.
I mean, I also remember playing GoldenEye the game, like on on Nintendo 64. That was like one of the go-to games. Super fun.
I love it. But see, I'm a classic, like James Bond. I grew up watching the James Bond films. And so as chauvinistic and you know, campy as they are, they hold a place in my heart.
Well, you can rewrite one with like a kick-ass, you know, why can't a woman be James Bond? Why haven't they had that? Why haven't they done that yet?
Well, you know, the same reason we don't have a black James Bond. People keep yelling about it. They get very angry. Very angry. Just like, you know, and I get it. Like I don't like when they change certain things about things that I love, but then I'm okay with it when they change things that I don't like necessarily care as much about, you know, like I kind of cared when they got a female doctor in Doctor Who. I like her, but I also had this fantasy of the Doctor. And so I was like, oh, but now I'm not going to have that, like, oh, whisk me off into your TARDIS, you know, but I respect her. So there's like, you know, I get why people have strong reactions, but then we just have to get over it and watch it.
Like, you also look at the Harry Potter play, the Westin in London. They had a black woman playing Hermione, and Jake really made a good point. All right, I'm gonna just put aside. I'm gonna ignore the transphobia right now. I know I hate that she doesn't.
This is the only good point she's ever had. No, just go ahead.
So ignoring that, she did say that she didn't specify her race in the books. She just said that she had like frilly hair. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting that she makes that point and she supports that. I also don't understand why she's like so supportive of like gay rights and like other representation, but just is, and it's so hard. I find it so difficult to separate something I grew up reading that I really have a strong attachment to, like Harry Potter. Yeah, I'm a fucking millennial. We have we know our houses and shit. Yeah. And then trying to separate that from clearly the transphobic writer.
Yeah, it's getting so hard. Like I was, like I was in a Harry Potter improv group. Like I have my robes and stuff like that. Like I know my house in both the English school and the American school. Like I was very into it, but the more she talks, the more I'm just like, I cannot justify it anymore. Like I never tried to justify her, but like I can't, I feel like I can't put any more money into that world. Like whatever I have, like it is my memory, whatever, but I'm not putting any more money into that woman. Like you just can't. Like she needs to be quiet and apologize like a lot, and get some kind of sensitivity training and some kind of, she needs to do a lot for the trans community. She needs to just like give $1 billion. She has extra, just give $1 billion because it's wrong.
I think it's just so heartbreaking to find that out. And I think it's different because sometimes we'll have older people, like people that were pretty misogynistic that were great writers, but this was people that were it's a couple hundred years ago or whatever. And there's different ways to forgive some of that. But when it happens during your time and they say something during that time, it's a lot harder to be like, well, you're just wrong at that point.
Yeah. And also like when people give you, I feel like people have given her chances to like, do better. Like, they haven't like automatically canceled her as they are wont to do with some people. And I'm not a big cancel culture person. I think like people can be redeemed and that we should give them a chance. At a certain point, if you don't, try to change or try to, learn, then there's nothing more I can do with you. Then I feel like, yeah, you need to be canceled. But like, I feel like giving chances and stuff like that is good, but people have given her multiple chances to like learn and grow and or even just, I feel like so many people were just like, if you just shut up, like we won't.
Yeah, like just stop talking about it. Shut up. Thing is, like I would still like, even when I had kids, I'd still love to introduce them to the books and read the books. And like, that's the thing. It's like a weird, like, it's such a weird thing now that you have to think about as artists, like what they do or don't support, how they speak about things. And that's so much more in our awareness, I think, than it was even 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, I think, growing up biracial, like there were certain people that I kind of got a disclaimer about. And I think, so I'm kind of used to getting disclaimers about people.
Like what kind of disclaimer would you get?
I mean, like I liked Elvis when I was a kid, right? I liked Elvis. I was like, and my dad, he had as a Black man, had a very different view. The Black community has a very different view of Elvis, right? In some ways, Elvis may have helped some of the Black community, but also he cultural appropriated and took a lot from Black people. So I got both sides, like I basically was like, my dad was like, but sure, but also this, and I got that with a lot of, people. And so I think I'm kind of used to that. I don't think it excuses their behavior. There's certain lines that I just like, I've never seen a Woody Allen movie and I don't want to, because I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't condone anything that he does. And I don't think it's worth it. That's the other thing. Like, it's like the impact of this person on the world, right? Like, I'm sure there's so many people who are like, yeah, that's amazing. He's amazing. But to me, I'm not losing anything by not having Woody Allen in my world. And I, have never seen one, and I don't need to. I don't need to like open that up. Now, when we find out later on that these people, like we've already invested, that's a little bit more difficult, right? Like when we don't know and then we find out later, that's hard. That's a hard,
Especially if you're already attached to the thing. And
yeah. I mean, like Bill Cosby, I grew up with Bill Cosby being like, a prominent figure in my household. Like we watched we watched the TV show. We had his comedy albums. I've watched all his specials. My dad had like looked like him and had stories with him and stuff like that. And finding out all this stuff about him, it was a hard pill to swallow. It was hard. I swallowed the pill, but it was hard.
And even like things like, even more recent stuff. Like I think, like Kevin Spacey was a great actor. He obviously had some fucked up stuff. I mean, I don't think I could ever watch American Beauty again without being like, super creeped out. And I'm so glad I watched Baby Driver was the last film I think I saw of his. And he played a bad guy, but like that was the last. And I'm glad I saw that movie before all that came out, because that's a great movie, but it's so complicated.
It's so complicated. And, like he is a great actor and he has played some iconic things, but he is a horrible person. And that's hard. Like, like Seven is like so iconic to me. And I know he's not in it a lot, but he is one of the most iconic moments. And I'm just like, ooh.
I know.
Oh, what do I do with that? Like, what do I do with that?
It's complicated.
Life is so complicated.
Growing up, like you grew up around here, right? You grew up in LA, Burbank? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in North Hollywood. Went to school in like Sherman Oaks, Studio City area. And at one point in Burbank for high school. So yeah.
Gotcha. And
I'm a local.
You're local, yeah. And you started pretty early in the business, right?
Yeah, I started, I think I had my first audition and everything at like 3 or 4.
Oh, wow.
I kind of remember my first audition. I don't remember like my first few like jobs. Sometimes I have to ask my mom, and she'll like, I've been writing this one woman show that's coming out. And I was like, oh, so like, this was my first job. And she was like, no, you did that Disney commercial. And I was like, I did a Disney commercial? And she was like, yeah, I was like, no clue, like no memory of this at all. I was like, okay. And like, it's interesting going through your life and like, and then like and my mom just has like so much more information about like, obviously my childhood than I do. And I'm like, I did not know any of that happened.
Because she had to do that with you, right? Is that the way it worked? Did you have to do school? Like...
Yeah, she had to go to set with me. And it depends on the job. For the Addams Family, like we had to go to school on set, picket fences sometime. It depends on the job. Like I went to school. Yeah. I wasn't always on set school, but there was times I was on set school, and that was interesting.
Wait, who were you on the Addams Family? I was about to rewatch that the other night.
There's a talent show where there's a whole bunch of kids on stage. Uh-huh. I'm one of the talent show kids. And then in the second one, I do all the singing for the campers. There's like maybe 3 or 4 of us that did the singing.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, it was fun. I really like that series.
How did you move from being an actor to being someone that writes and produces podcasts and does stand-up and like creating a one-woman show? Like, how did you make that transition from just auditioning and being in stuff to being more of a creator?
I think, in my, in college, I realized I was growing up, right? Like, obviously we all realize that we're growing up, but I also realized that my career needed to grow up, because for so long, everybody else had a say in what I did, right? And everybody else had the control over it. And I realized that I could make my own narrative, and I didn't have to just sit there and wait for somebody else to tell me I had an audition or tell me I had this, or, I could start creating. And, it started with like short films. It started with like, directing plays and writing plays. And then like when the podcast stuff started happening, like when it was very, like not many people had podcasts, like I was like, oh, let's try to figure this out. And we ended up being like a live radio show because I just didn't know that you couldn't ask. Like, I was just like, why not ask? They can say no. So like I asked this radio station, Skid Row Studios radio station, can we have a show there? And they were just like, yeah.
That's something I've learned during this is like, it doesn't hurt to ask because the worst you're going to get is a no. I mean, if you're nice and you're not an asshole about it and not expecting, it's like, hey, it doesn't hurt to ask. Like,
no, and you just ask. And like, also like, the reason why we started going to conventions was like, I emailed conventions and I was like, hey, so like, how do you get a panel? Like, what do you need from me? I'll send it to you. And they were like, oh, well, I'll just like pitch something. And I was like, cool, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, sure. And I was like, okay.
And that's how you got a panel on. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I started getting panels at, I started at smaller cons. I actually started at LGBTQ Comic Cons.
Oh.
Yeah. Which they were just such a welcoming community. And I wish that some of those conventions still happened. BentCon was like our favorite, but they don't do it anymore. But yeah, it was such a fun, it was so much more relaxed than like a Comic-Con, like everyone was just a true fan and they were just having fun.
I love it.
It was just like, so I was really, really happy to be a part of that kind of convention.
That's very cool. Do you dress up when you go to conventions?
I had a period of time where I did, and then I just got like super overwhelmed with like working and dressing up because it's exhausting. Like when you're in like full costume and then people want to take pictures and that's awesome. Like that's the point. Like you dress up so people can take pictures. And I'm just exhausted. I'm also like, especially like Comic-Con, like I have it down. Like I take a little bit of an anxiety edible before I go on the floor. And then I get like maybe an hour before I like start having like a panic attack. And then I'm like, cool, that I'm done. I'm done with the Comic-Con convention floor. The edible's gone. I gotta go.
That can be a lot. Yeah, I think the dressing up is fun though, but I've only been to a couple, so that's just,
I like a casual cosplay. I like a comfortable cosplay. I mean, like I just, I one time did Batman 66, so I had that full mask and I was just like, I can't. Like never again.
You kind of want to do like the Disney bounding version of Comic-Cons.
Yeah, because it's more comfortable, Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Disney bounding is for people that go to Disney World. The adults cannot dress up as people, obviously. So that way the little kids don't come up to them and ask them for pictures. Very clear. I guess some exceptions, Halloween, I'm guessing. But so what people do, and I love to people watch for this when we could go to Disney, was seeing people who would Disney bound, which means like if you're dressing as Belle, you might wear like a white top and like a blue skirt or something like that like alludes to it, for example.
Although some of this bounding gets like to the point where you're like, that's almost, that's a costume, especially on certain days. Like I used to like dress up for like Dapper Day, which is a day that at Disneyland where now it's a weekend when it was open, like it got so big, there was like a convention and everything, but where people would just go Disney bound, but in a fancy way, like usually in like 1950s, 60s style, like very heels and gloves and whatever. And so then you would take a character that you liked and you would make it more dapper, but it was, just full costumes of heels and walking around Disneyland and gloves and hats. And
it's just fun. Disneyland and heels. That just sounds so uncomfortable. Like, how do you ride the rides? Like, I guess you don't. You just go and you don't ride rides.
Oh, the funniest thing is like when people do like hoop skirts or something because it's like, like different time periods. So they have like those big petticoats and stuff like that.
Oh, like a couch, like
to get on
that you're running around in.
Yeah, you're like in the, you're like trying to get into the rides.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I probably suffered from this for a roller coaster or two, where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna wear like a petticoat and some heels, and then I'm like, yeah, how do I get out of this ride? I think I'm stuck. We'll just ride again.
That's a Disney little trick. Just wear something that makes you impossible to get out of the ride, and you get to ride it again for free.
Yeah, and then at some point they're like, well, we gotta get you out somehow.
Yeah. I miss rides. I miss things like that, like going to Disneyland and things like that. But that'll come back, eventually.
It may look a little different, but it'll come back. I have slight like panics sometimes where I just like wake up and I just like I'm like I just want to do something. Like I don't know what I want to do, but then like or I'm like it would just be nice to walk around Disneyland. Go to Carthay, have my favorite drink at Carthay Circle, and then walk around and go on the Monsters Inc. ride or something stupid. Like I'm just like I just want to do something simple that used to be my normal. And I know.
Our normal has changed so much right now, and it's like I'm trying to make lists of things that I haven't done. Like I'm gonna go to Catalina on Saturday. I've never been, so like I'm trying to do like outdoorsy things that are like still COVID friendly that I could do that I haven't done. Like other things, like I think I want to find a ghost town that's not incredibly far away, like a couple hours away, and just visit a ghost town or some random shit. I'm trying to find outdoor stuff that isn't like canceled because but it's hard. I mean,
yeah. I mean, Catalina is gorgeous and there's so much to do outside. Like you can take a bike ride around the island because you can literally go around the island and very fast. And last time I actually went to Catalina, we rented one of those like golf carts. I had never driven a golf cart before, and I don't know why it's scarier than a car for me. I was just like, no, I don't like this at all. Like,
oh, really?
I don't know why. I think it was going up the hills and going down the hills, and just being in like in an open, like having like I had my niece and nephew and my family in there. And, like, they were like, I was like, great. So like, if I messed up, we go off a cliff and.
Oh yeah, I could see that being a little scary.
I was like, I don't know why I'm so much. Like, because I love driving. I'm a good driver, and I love driving. But
someone from LA that says that they love driving, that's like almost unheard of. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I love driving. I actually drove a lot later in life, though, so maybe that's why.
Oh, when did you get your license?
22 or 23.
Oh, I feel like a lot of people are delaying their licenses now because they're just like, well, I can just Uber.
And I didn't have like Uber and Lyft and stuff weren't really a thing back then, but like I had boyfriends and they just and I was like, I don't really want to be responsible for paying for I didn't really want to be responsible for that yet. Like I didn't want to be responsible for people being in my car. I didn't want to be responsible for paying for a car. I didn't want to be responsible for people's lives. Like I just didn't want to be that person. And it wasn't until I broke up with my ex and he said, you're never going to drive. Then I was like, oh.
Yeah. And then you're just like, you're wrong.
Oh, I'm going to drive. You have no clue.
I would love to find out how many things women have done just because a man told them that they couldn't.
So many. Just for me alone. So many. I'm like, oh, really?
Yeah. It's like, you really think I can't do this? Well, like, just sit there and watch.
Right. No, and I have no idea if he knows I can. I hope he knows I can drive now. I have no idea.
Whatever his name is, if you're listening and you told your ex Anastasia that she couldn't drive, well, she can drive now. All right. So there. She can.
You drive now. He's like, no, I don't want to hear from her. Last time she told me if I even like thought she might be in the area, I shouldn't be in the area. That's true. I told him that. I was like, if you even think I might go to this Target, don't go to that Target ever.
Man, you were very upfront about that.
I was just like, I don't want to see your face.
Yeah, I need to get better with that. I think I was always like trying to be like, well, don't burn bridges. And then I finally like needed to burn a bridge. And I was like, yeah, this is nice. I get it.
Yeah, I don't like burning bridges with like too many people. I don't mind burning his bridge. Like, there's certain bridges I'm like, let it burn.
There are certain bridges that are really dangerous and toxic, and you're just like, nah, we can let that one go.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I'm toxic on both sides. Like, I feel like I am a very honest person because I'll be like, we were both toxic in that situation because for some reason us together just made me psycho and him psycho, and I don't know if he's still psycho, but I'm not psycho anymore. And I look back at like some of my stuff I did and I'm like, holy moly, like what is wrong? Like, what is wrong with you?
Same with me and my own. It was just like a situation where we were not compatible. We're not right for each other. And they're just, sometimes you find yourself doing things like, it's that phrase, love makes you do crazy things. And you're just like, well, not healthy for me. So
yeah, because like I'm such an independent person. Like I feel smothered very easily, which is something I should work on. Probably comes from being a child actor and like not seeing people for long periods of time, and then seeing people for long periods of time and then not seeing them again, or maybe like I have this like independence where I don't get too attached too fast, right? And so I'm not like clingy, but with him I was clingy, and I have no idea why, because that's just not me. Like I'm the kind of person that gets like text messages from guys now, and if I get more than one in a day, I'm like, dude, calm down. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing my stuff. I will get back to you. Like that's who I am. So I'm just like, I don't know what brain chemistry I was going through back then. I really don't understand. I can't fathom it.
Yeah, I mean, at least you've gone back and been like, well, it's probably because when I was a child actor. That's very good insight, at least seeing. What was your favorite what was your favorite thing about that, or least favorite or crazy story about being child actor?
I think probably the craziest thing was when I did an album with Michael Jackson. I think that whole process was just insane. Like I don't think anybody's been through a situation like that where like you had to see like multiple people and sign multiple contracts and you're a kid, you know, like it's just like, even working with Disney, I didn't have to go through the loops I had to go through to be on Michael Jackson's album. You know what I mean? It was just like, it was very intense. And then he was just, you know, I think it was really during the time where things were starting to like, allegations were happening and stuff like that. So he was just like, it was like meeting somebody that you really admired and then seeing like them be paranoid and anxious and not like this put together person, you know, that you
imagine.
And he had started getting all that work done, you know? And I was just like, oh.
And
like,
how did that make you feel? Because obviously he had basically changed his complexion at that point, right? Is that when it was happening? Like,
yeah, and his nose and everything. I mean, I just was very like, I mean, a little not scared, but like I didn't understand what was going on. Like, I just didn't understand that was the same person that I like when I was a kid. I used to think like, I'm going to grow up and be him. I don't even know why I thought I could grow up and be a different person, let alone a male. But I was like, I'm going to grow up and be Michael Jackson. And like to see him, I was like, this is not the man that I, you know, and so many people are so like, especially as a child actor, like people are so nice to you, you know, and he was so scared of us, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it was like a little bit, maybe not scared, cautious. Like it was just very different.
Yeah.
So I think I have like weird feelings about that whole situation. Whereas like, you know, I talk about other people I've worked with, and like I can tell you how nice those people are. Like I don't know what I can say. Like I don't, you know, it was a strange time for us all. Like it's just a strange album.
That is. Which album was it?
History.
Okay.
It's not really one of his top albums.
It's okay. It's
I'm fine. I watched the documentary because everyone was like, watch the documentary. And I was like, they started going through the house in the documentary about him. And I was like, I didn't really think that I remembered anything about the house. And then I was like, oh yeah, around the corner is and I was like, oh, I guess I do remember it.
so weird. How much seeing a picture or a video of something when we're younger, like, can remind us, like, jog our memory, I guess.
Yeah. And I was like, at the end of the documentary, my mom's like, did I do wrong? And I was like, I don't think so. I think you were fine. Like, I don't think like, I was never alone with him. I don't know. Yeah. I think you were fine. Like,
it's strange for sure. I do want to talk a little bit about what you're working on right now, because I think it's kind of very cool that you're taking this time in the pandemic to work on a one-woman show, right?
Yeah, so weird. But it's been a dream of mine to do a one-woman show, and the opportunity presented itself, and it's going to be different than I imagined, you know, because I will be in a theater by myself with no audience and people can virtually watch it. But that's, you know, it's rolling with the different right now. And I'm really excited about it. It really talks about the first 10 years of my life. Because I felt like that was and it talks a lot about being mixed, about being biracial, goes a little bit into like acting, but I feel like acting is a whole nother show. It's like, oh, we could do a whole show on that, you know. I'm sure, like acting experiences, like you're writing a one-woman show, you know, like that would be a whole nother show for you.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, the experiences are so different. So maybe one day it'll just be child actor.
Yeah.
That would be a horrible name.
What's this one called?
This one's called 50 Shades of Mixed: Confessions of Your Ethnically Ambiguous Best Friend.
I like that. And then how did you go about like finding a director and like working through this? And why did you decide to do this now instead of wait?
Well, you know, I actually applied for the Black Voices Festival at Whitefire Theater. And I had started writing it and I was like, okay, I'm just going to submit it. And so I submitted it and they got back to me and we had such a good talk with the programmer, and the programmer understood my vision, understood me so well that she is now the director of my one-woman show. So I was very lucky about us finding each other because she's really gets that my story is unique and important. Everybody's story is important and it's timely. You know, there's some timely stuff that's happening with like Black Lives Matter and yeah, we touch on it. I touch on it in there, and I try to make things comedic, but sometimes there's a little emotion. We'll get you in there.
That's a one-person show and not an hour-long stand-up show. Like, there's a big difference, and I think that's why leaning towards one-person shows right now makes a little bit more sense, because there's a lot going on and a lot that needs to be said, and not everything can be funny. Like, I think you can make most things funny in some ways, but sometimes you got to acknowledge that things are real.
Yeah, you do. And I do think that comedy is a great way to deliver hard things, right? And so I think that finding a balance between that in my show is what I really try to, it just makes it easier for people to like palatable, right? And so I try to be honest. I try to be upbeat about things, but when it gets down to it, you know, life's hard and stuff happens that is just not pleasant, and we should talk about it. I don't think we should just skirt it under the rug. because when we do, it just gets worse. So like, we just need to talk about it and share each other's experiences, because, you know, we can all learn from each other. I think if we learn from each other, we can respect each other a lot more, right?
I totally agree. So then are you going to be doing it live from the theater? So when people buy tickets for it, it's actually you're buying it to watch it absolutely live.
Yes. So I will be doing it live on November 13th at 7 p.m. And then people that buy tickets will get a ticket link for 48 hours to watch it. So if you watch it at 7, it is literally live. If you watch it in, the next day, it was live.
Well, that's good that there's that flexible option. That's very cool.
Yeah. So like, there is a little bit of leeway for people that are in different time periods. If you're in a different time period, if you're in a different time zone, or just, can't watch it right then on November 13th, which is Friday the 13th. And maybe you're doing a seance, I don't know. Go
Friday
do your seance.
I didn't even think about that. That's awesome.
I made that intentionally.
You made that intentional, yeah, because you're horror stuff as well. So this must be a fun month for you.
Yeah, well, I initially picked, my birthday is November 14th. So I initially picked that, but somebody else had booked the theater that day. So I was like, well, the next best thing is a Friday the 13th premiere.
And it happens to be the day before. I think that's pretty lucky. So
yeah, it's very lucky for me. My sister, I told her that it's going to be, she's like, oh no, that's bad luck. And I was like, oh, calm down.
Oh, superstitions. It's so silly, but 13 is actually lucky. 13 is actually a lucky number in my family. My mom is 13 years younger than my dad. My dad is 13 years younger than my mom's mom, and my mom is 13 years older than my half-sisters. So it's like a weird number with 13 in my family.
See, it's a lucky number.
Yeah.
It's a lucky number. I don't know. I just like it. I like it's creepy. I like it. I'm slightly creepy. I think I had a professor in college call me the goth Martha Stewart. And I kind of dug that. Like, I was like, yeah, sure.
That's cool. I like that. Oh, that'd be a funny character for sure. The goth Martha Stewart.
Yeah. We still both go to jail, but it's a very different experience.
But are you dressing up this year for Halloween?
I think so. I think that I'm actually going to, my niece is turning 11, and I think I might be doing a little kind of performance for her and her friends as honor of her birthday on actual Halloween. So I don't know. That's kind of like murder mystery, something like that.
Oh, that's such a cool aunt thing to be able to do for your niece. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really nice to be. She's such a creative kid too, so it's really fun. I'm always the one that'll dress up. I talked to my sister last night. She's like, "We're either doing a murder mystery or we're doing an escape room, and I expect you to dress up." And I was like, "Obviously,
yeah.
Who else is going to host this? I will do this. This will be me."
I think you're never too old to dress up. I think it's super fun. And yeah, that's a theater kid in me, but never too afraid. And I'm trying to find a way to make my costume COVID friendly. So I'm actually thinking I'm doing Harley Quinn from Birds of Prey. I'm building that fringy jacket thing. And then I'm thinking about getting a mask made that just is her face in the bottom. So that if I wanted to walk outside,
Yeah. Well, you can just buy it at Hot Topic too, the jacket.
Yeah, I know, but I wanted to make it.
Oh, you're handy like that.
Well, I haven't been. Last year I made my first thing like that. I did Lilu from The Fifth Element. So I made
Which is my favorite movie. That's my favorite movie.
Oh, such a good movie. Such a good movie. And I made, it wasn't the white thing. It was the orange jumpsuit thing. And it was the first time I really really made an effort into making something, because I was like, I could reuse this for a Comic-Con or whatever. So I custom made the jumpsuit thing. The gold pants were leggings I bought on Amazon, and I used gaff tape to make the black lines in it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like it was actually not that hard to put together. Just that one part took a while. So I was like, oh, I kind of like it's like also in quarantine, it's like something to do, like physical, like to like actually try to work and like kind of be proud of. I don't know. It's like a nerdy, like added hobby I've added to.
I mean, I love it. I used to be really into like making my costumes. And then I also was a costumer for a few years, and now I'm just like, cool, what can I throw on? I think I'm just lazy right now. I'm not lazy. I just have different priorities. Like, I'd rather create a sketch.
Yeah. I think it's something because like the part of this is like I'm actually tying these little things to like a fishnet long sleeve shirt. So it's like I can do this while I'm watching a movie. It's almost like my knitting, like this little it's like taking a while, and then I'll just like hot glue it to like a clear jacket thing. So we'll see how that works. But
I think it'll be fun. I think it'll look really good. That's gonna be a fun costume.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, my parents were super into Halloween growing up. Like, they still have bins of Halloween costumes at their house in their storage room, like bins, and they dress up every year, and it's just been a thing all my life. So we have always been super into it.
Yeah, I love Halloween. I've been trying to go to all these drive-through Halloween experiences because I'm such a Halloween person. I
want to go to the Stranger Things one, but it's like sold out till January.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going.
Oh, yeah, where are you going?
I'm going October 30th.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, and I went to a different one last night. I went to this one called the Bite LA, and it was so fun. It was so cool. I actually was the fourth car to ever go through it, so it was a little bit bumpy start, but the monsters were really cool. You like drive around this like creepy lake, and these like monsters are like coming out of the lake and everything. And then there's like a food crawl where like these monsters come to the car and like deliver different food to you.
Oh,
like with like baskets and stuff, so they're not even touching you. You like put your order in. It was cool. It was really cool.
Was it scary?
I mean, there was a couple times I was like, and I'm glad I didn't get too scared because I was driving, but there was a couple times where I didn't realize there was like a person there, and there were really good costumes that I was like, and then I was like, great, good. This is why they tell you to go slow. Because I was like, this could, be bad.
It's interesting to see how creative people have gotten, because they're like, all right, what can we do? People in the cars can't be too scary because we don't want wrecks. It's like whole different ball game, but it's good to see people being creative about it.
Yeah, they're really I mean, that one was really fun and creative. I went to Haunted Hayride has one. It's like a drive-through one, and I liked the Bite LA better than the Haunted Hayride one, which I love the Haunted Hayride, and I think they tried, but there's just more interaction, I feel like, with the Bite LA, but safe interaction, and I felt more Halloween.
Yeah. I'll have to see what you think of the Stranger Things one, because that looks awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down for all of them. I tried to do that Freeform one. Freeform had Hocus Pocus. It was Nightmare Before Christmas, Hocus Pocus, and all these other ones. And it was free. And I was on there for hours trying to get tickets. Hours.
Oh, man. I wish I could do that. That sounds like fun.
No, it was like last week, too.
You like to be scared?
I do. It's new to me, though. I liked horror movies, like being scared like that. But when people jumped out at me, I used to smack people. And
did you actually as a kid, you just like smack them?
Yeah, I punched a clown once when I was like a teenager at Six Flags, and it was bad. But I warned him. I told him, "Don't come any closer. I can't control myself," and he did. So.
Did you go to Six Flags, like jail or something, or?
No, I don't even think he told anybody, because like a 12-year-old girl like socked him in the face. Like I literally told him, "Don't come in. I'm really scared. I can't control myself," and he did. So
that's what you do.
He got socked in the face. That's what happens. But a couple years ago, I have a lot of phobias. I still have quite a few of them. But a couple years ago, I went to a hypnotherapist to try to get rid of some of my phobias. And I didn't work on this particular phobia of punching people in public, but I was going through all the things that stemmed from some of my fears. And for some reason, I went to Knox Scary Farm and I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't want to be afraid anymore. And I just started enjoying it. I literally just said out loud, I don't want to be afraid anymore. And it worked. It has not worked for the other remaining phobias. I have tried.
Well, the therapy worked for something.
I know. Well, just maybe I'll just be permanently scared of these other things. I don't know. I have no clue.
But you're working on our stuff. That's what we,
We're always changing and growing, hopefully.
That's the goal. Well, we're starting to wind down the podcast a little bit. I know we talked a little bit about sleep stuff earlier, but I always ask people before we end, what are your dreams and hopes for your future?
Ooh, dreams and hopes for my future. I want to be the female Jordan Peele.
Love it.
That's my goal. I want to produce social content that is entertaining, that gives you an important message, and that makes you laugh and also scares you. That's what I want. I just want to continue to make stuff like that.
I think that's a great goal. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for doing the podcast. We always end by saying good night, everybody. So good night.
Night.
Thanks for listening to Sleeping with Sarah, where I slept with Anastasia Washington. Be sure to check out her one-woman show, 50 Shades of Mix. Follow her on Instagram @AnastasiaWash and Twitter @AnastasiaW. And check out her many podcasts, including Hysterical, You Can't Do That Anymore, Serial Killers, and Haunts and Hops. If you like the podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe. I'll be releasing a new podcast each week, so tune in to find out who I have in bed with me next. A big thanks to Josh Bryant for the music. If you want to find out more about me, go to sleepysarah.com or follow me on Instagram and Twitter @SarahAlbritton. Until next time, good night.
Sleeping with Sarah.